direct to your phone. Go to Google Play or App Store and search for Crack Crime Bahamas, then pick install and it will go straight to your phone.
There is also a section on missing persons.
Yes, girl, everybody needs to get this app so police can tell us right away when these people go missing, just like an alert system.
Yes, it has numbers for Crime Stoppers Bahamas, so you can call and nobody knows it's you. Call directly to Miami and give the information without giving your name or anything about you. I tried the other day, and when I hear Junior and his boys talking about where they hide those guns, I walk quick around the corner and call that number.
Call 328-8477 from Nassau or 242-300-8477 from the Family Islands.
This is Guardian Radio 96.9 FM. Fresh news, smart talk, all day.
The views and opinions of the host and guests are their own and do not necessarily reflect the position of the management and staff of Guardian Network.
Good afternoon, Bahamas, and welcome to the Hit Back. I'm your host, Nahaja Black. It is a beautiful day here in the 242. I hope that everybody's doing well, that we are taking care of ourselves. It's Tuesday, y'all. I have to ask this question before we go even start the show today. Did anyone really realize the time changed? Like, I really feel like I missed that whole... Like, my watch is still... You know, and I still have an old watch, really, not the one of these smart watches everybody's rocking. But, I mean, wow, right? Time changed, and I don't feel any different. It just, I remember when time changing was a thing. Like, it mattered. It doesn't matter anymore, right? Like, oh, time changed. My mother today was like, you know, it's 1 o'clock. I'm like, no, it's 12. No, it's not. I didn't even notice time change. I just thought that was fascinating, how Corona has taken us totally off of wherever we are, and it ain't making no kind of sense. So today I'm feeling songsy, music-y, because it's a little heavy day. President Trump is possibly going to have 2 terms, right? This is the U.S. election, y'all. And I'm feeling, you know, not so optimistic, because the last time we were optimistic, the last time we believed in an election, well, I mean, nobody was really going to vote for Hillary, right? Because right at the end of Hillary's campaign, Comey comes out and says she's being investigated. Even I, who can't vote in the U.S. election, was like, I'm voting for her, and I can't even vote. Like, well, child, I'm voting for her. She on investigation. Only for Comey to come back later and you know, be another cog in the wheel of the Donald Trump sideshow. For the record, I want to say that this is the largest reality TV show that Trump has ever had. The ratings are high. And pretty much the whole world has been in a sense of anxiety. This is so cool. Like, in a sadistic sort of way, Trump has made 4 years of the biggest, most global reality TV show that we've ever seen, ever. Like, there are world leaders today who are riveted, right? This is like the season finale, because it could most definitely be not a series finale, but a season finale. Because regardless if Trump wins or not, you are certain that there's going to be some sort of like extra right after the announcement if Biden wins, right? And so this is us being glued to our seat. There's never been a reality show like it. Like, for 4 years, we've been a part of the set. We've been the extras on the set, right? Like, we're so intimately involved globally. So imagine Americans who are struggling. I got a friend, dual citizen, right? And she's drinking her sorrows away. I felt sorry for her. Like, why are you drinking? Because Trump's going to win again. I don't, you know, what does it mean for us? Actually, it might mean a lot for us. And so I'm welcoming an economist on the show today to talk about what are the global relations, what happens if President Trump wins again, right? Many will say that President Trump winning so far has been good for us. Well, minus the pandemic. Yeah, his poor handling of it. Y'all better just get your Lysol, y'all, whatever that is. There's a nice one called Breeze or something. I got it from Kelly's. It was a nice little can. It smells good. I hope it's as good as Lysol, but it smells good. My child took it for air freshener, but I digress. Anyways, so the question is, what will Trump do, and is it worth anything? You know, that pillar of salt. So we got that. That is happening, right? And then I wonder if there was a song that you had for Trump. If there was a song, actually, not for Trump, but the entire election, right? U.S. election, or the season of Trump, this 4-year season, this 4 years of episodes, right? There's these 4 seasons of Trump. That's what I call it, because there's a reality special, right? The 4 seasons of Trump had a global espionage angle. It had sex and scandal. It had intrigue with firings. We had a pandemic. So like, we're getting all of these nemesis, right? Whilst you have this contingent that continues to be frustrated called the Democrats and America. And then you have the growing rise of white supremacy, the rebirth of white supremacy, or really just the covers coming off and saying, boo, I was always here, I'm awake, hey. And so there's so much drama to the Trump appeal. So I want to know today, do you have a song that best encapsulates this year? Okay, Kermit is my producer today. Kermit, shout out to Kermit. You're listening to the Hit Back with Nahaja Black on Guardian 96.9 FM. Someone says it's the media versus Trump. Well, I mean, you know, it could quite possibly be the media versus Trump. Whereas it can't just be the media. It could be all those people who voted against Trump and then those who don't like Trump now voting against Trump. But it definitely could be the media versus Trump. I can't take it from him, because some things I'm like, y'all can... Like Don Lemon really just can't stand Trump. From CNN, Don Lemon cannot stand Trump. And someone says, if you are black, you're supposed to vote Democrat. Remember, they told... Yeah, this is my good friend. And my good friend definitely... I love him. But he extra with his Trump propaganda. But I love you, Jay. You my guy. So if you have a song... All right, Kermit. That song... what was it? By P. Diddy? We Ain't Going Nowhere? You remember that song? We ain't going nowhere. I feel like that should be the horror song. There's a horror song for Trump. There should be a horror song. And I needed to look like that, because I actually had that for the Free National Movement guys, for this party, right? That they feel like they're not going anywhere. And so they got that swagger about him. I feel like Trump has a swagger. A swagger of, y'all could come for me, boo, but I ain't going nowhere. And so I wonder if, you know, so Kermit, whenever you got that, cue that up, play that up, because I'm looking for songs. What song best encapsulates? Because I like to talk about, I think music can tell so many great stories and they come back in time, it reverberates, right? What song best encapsulates your thinking of the 4 seasons of Trump? I think that is so cool. That we look at it and there's so much that has gone on. And I wonder, I have a challenge now personally where I don't know if I'm going to vacation in the U.S. for a while until things die down, right? Because being black now is an issue. Whereas, you know, as much as we say, yeah, that's Florida, like Florida, and you know, realize Floridians are kind of like off their rocker, stand your ground and, you know, probably throw an alligator on you because you're black. I don't know. Florida's a little iffy. You've never been nervous going to Florida. Because we're Bahamians, right? Bahamians don't feel black. We don't wake up, oh, I'm black. Everybody black. Black is black. It's just black. We just what we are. You got different shades of black. John says the song is The Battle Is Not Over. Yeah. The battle is in yours. Is that it? I don't know that one. So, I mean, you look at it, I'm concerned that I won't be going to Florida anytime soon. Just in case. I feel like my Walmart money won't get me a pass in the United States. My Walmart money ain't coming through for me this lap. Because, you know, you got Walmart money. Walmart money always makes you feel rich. Like when you go in there and you are certain that your 5 items shouldn't cost more than $100 and it ends up being $300. Be like, well, what? And you're supposed to be Walmart. Don't look at me sideways. Don't look at me like this. I need a song. I want to get your thoughts. What song best encapsulates the 4 seasons of Trump? You can feel free to give us a call, 325-4259, 325-4316, 323-6232, or you can text us at 422-4796. That's 325-4259, 325-4316, 323-6232. You can text us at 422-4796. So don't forget, I want to get your songs. I want to get what you're thinking would be the best song or whatnot for this. I'm curious as to that. And Kermit, make sure cue up my song We Ain't Going Nowhere, because that's my Trump song. I feel like that's his song. If he doesn't win, or if he doesn't win, or the numbers don't work out, he ain't going nowhere. And if he does win, I would still play that song. And I think he should get 50 Cent to rap it because 50 Cent is his guy, right? Or what's the name? Lil Wayne. I feel like that's the connection we'll be missing because, you know, the rappers love him. The rappers love him. Someone said that's because most Bahamians rarely go past Florida, Miami on quick trips in Orlando for the Disney vacation. Florida was always the crazy capital. Walmart hasn't been cheap since 1999. You ain't lie. Go to Walmart, or everything could fold up in one carry-on, and that's $700. Walmart, I spot you. Everyday low prices. No, you ain't. Anyways, I digress. So Trump is winning. I feel like Trump is like, if there's ever a time you shouldn't believe or be positive, it would be this one. Yeah, I got a feeling Trump is going to win, and I think we should all brace for that. The best reality special that has ever been on TV has been the Trump presidency, and so I think a lot of us tonight are going to be stressed out, and this is like the same level of intrigue as when Obama became president. But I think it's because we're paralyzed with fear this one and not overjoyed with hope the last one. I think last one with Obama in 2008, everybody's hopeful. So we were all watching. We had watch parties, right? Now folks are going to have watch parties to see if Trump is going to win a second term. And if he wins, there will be an audible sigh and, you know, disgust. Now, I realize a lot of Bahamians love Trump. Love Trump. And I wonder how to feel about the immigration policies of Trump. I would say that they're A-okay with the immigration policies of Trump. I actually think a lot more of us are conservatives in the social aspect, but then we're fiscal liberals, right? So we want the state to help more financially, and yet we want the conservative ties of you know, the Republican way. So, you know, gay marriage? No. Gay anything? No. Right? That's funny thing who we are. So we want more spending on us, and we want less rights for everyone else. I think that's who we are. I think that's who we are. And the church, I think the church is better for us than it is. I think, y'all tell me, is the church here better in terms of not getting their principles caught up, right? Is the church better in not getting its principles caught up that in the Bahamas with politics than in the States? I think that in the States you have the church where you're questioning what is Christian, right? You're wondering if the church, even, listen, we got Samaritan's Purse here, Billy Graham's son, and you're wondering how, you know, what type of Christian, based on our consideration, some people question, what type of Christian is Pastor Graham for, you know, endorsing certain things, you know? And so I wonder where we are with the state, like where we are with religion. Are we better with the church here not getting involved in politics or choosing a side? I think we may be, because, you know, we don't show it the way that they do in the States, right? So you got Paula White praying. Well, we do that too. We do that too. But have we had any pastor pray for our leader and say that God made them for this season and this time? Did we? Have we had that? I can't tell you. So I think it's one of those fascinating things about the dichotomy of Bahamian politics, what we want, what we like, and then the American politics, how they run, and our judgments there. But I think a lot more Bahamians are conservative, right? I think we're very conservative. So we're social, but we're definitely the social side Republicans, very conservative on certain issues. So we won't have any of this gay marriage thing. We are very strong on our immigration policies. We love our immigration silos. Diversity is fine, but fit in a norm. And I support any reform on our immigration system where, not any reform, I don't want it to be so open. I look at other countries and their open borders. Consider Europe. France, Paris has had, let's just say France. France has had, within the month, I think 3 major terror attacks. So we have to consider how open borders work for us. Now, mind you, our immigrants are not terrorists, but because we don't manage it, come on, we're building sub-cities in our country. We have shanty towns where there are 2 languages and one that we don't predominantly speak. So something can be concocted and we wouldn't even know. And I'm not saying that that's happening. I'm saying that's how national security issues arise. one of the countries, Switzerland, they were smart enough to say no more ghettos, none of these shanty towns. In essence, you're going to get inculcated into our culture. Your children are going to go to our schools. If you want to be here and we welcome you here, you have to become a part of us. We're not going to become a part of you. I don't see anything wrong with that. And I don't think that anyone should tell a country how they should run their sovereignty. That's my conversation. But religion and our fiscal prudence is going to be very interesting. I think, folks, there's a lot of Bahamians who are voting for Trump. If we could vote, boy, Bahamians would have been a swing vote for sure in Florida. All up in Miami, we'd have been doing all kind of funky stuff. Paula White came, someone says Paula White came up and black folks in Tampa then cheated. Oh, well, wait a second. Says to consider Switzerland's immigration is a mess. Yeah. Someone says the church office have a very good position on election handle. Okay. And says we're very conservative Republican in the Bahamas. I think it's going to be very interesting how this all comes about and how it all plays out here in the Bahamas election season, how it's going to work out. So I'm looking forward to this tonight, y'all. I'm looking forward to it. I can't wait. I'm looking forward to it. Got to see how this all plays out on our side. Eager anticipation. Right, so 4:00 actually they're starting their shows, but the first tallies. Someone, Jonathan, oh, I love you too. I love you too. Jonathan said he's voting for me. I want to get your song. Anybody got a song that best express how this is working out for the 4 seasons of Trump? I'm telling you, the 4 seasons of Trump, it's the best thing ever. I want to know how it is. It's the Trump theme for the end of this term is "Hate It or Love It" by 50 Cent. I'm gonna find that one. Kermie, cue these up for me, please, so we can begin to play some of these. Said, "Hate It or Love It" by 50 Cent? Huh. I don't know. I never heard of that one. I never heard of that. So that's going to be interesting. Well, if anything by 50 Cent, I got to edit. Does that have to edit? All right. Someone says, President Donald Trump will continue to make America great again. Oh, Lord. Y'all really think so? I mean, really? Y'all really think Trump made America great? Oh, Say no IKEA and codfish in the White House. Kamala, y'all stop hating, boy. Kamala is the joint. They could have their first first female vice president, and she's black, double whammy. So I'm excited about tonight. I want to see what happens. So if you're like me, you're excited, you want to see, and if Trump loses, we know that there's going to be more drama, and I wonder how this all plays out. Y'all gotta forgive me, but I'm so keen to watch this thing. There's so much more drama that's going to be happening. I'm totally excited about it. We got a call on the line. Caller, you're on the head back. Welcome.
Hi, sir.
How you doing, Brayman? You got a song?
No, I have a concern.
Oh boy, what is it?
Now, there are some people here since of Mason Station, right?
Mm-hmm.
They're from that other part of the South, right? They built a toilet.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. Felt like I was going somewhere odd. Trump says that Trump song is "Me Against the World" by Tupac. Yeah, that's a good one. That is a good one. Trump would put, that would be one. That would be one. "Me Against the World" with Tupac. That would be a good one. Okay, so I got this thing where I readied this clip. Right, ready this clip of some of Trump's best gaffes, and then after the break, we'll come back and we'll talk about some of the other measures that have happened, that are happening constantly within the Bahamas. We got that COVID thing, and how that continues to affect us. Tourism we're open, y'all. We're open, and people are coming in, and I'm excited. I won't lie to you. I'm excited to see folks coming into the country. It somehow gives a form of normalcy, and you're excited about that normalcy. But at the same time, there is anxiety. And so, we're hoping that all of these things work out together. But I got this little Trump kit, this little playlist. Some of my favorite gaffes of Trump. You got to listen to some of the words that he says. He couldn't say anonymous. So he said animus. I'm going to miss Trump. If Trump loses to boring Biden, the drama is no more, right? And there's no more books for reporters to write and get rich off of. And we'll go back to not watching Rachel Maddow. Rachel is legit. I'm just saying, I never watched Fox, and I never will watch Fox because there's only so much, I guess, you market to your base. Well, here's the clip, and then we'll go to commercial. Kirby, here we go.
I'm very highly educated. I know words. I have the best words.
He's not a war hero. He's a war hero. He's a war hero.
5.5 years.
He's a war hero because he was captured. I like people that weren't captured, okay?
I was down there, and I watched our police and our firemen down on 7-Eleven, down the World Trade Center right after it came down. Look at what happened in the 1990s. Our embassies in Kenya and Tanzania, and this was a horrible period of time for us, were attacked.
You know what uranium is, right? It's a thing called nuclear weapons and other things. Like lots of things are done with uranium, including some bad things.
And I will tell you, I left Texas, and I left Florida, and I left Louisiana, and I went to Puerto Rico, and I met with the president of the Virgin Islands. The latest act of resistance is the op-ed published in the failing New York Times by an anonymous, gutless coward.
The wall, the barrier, whatever you want to call it, it's okay with me. They can name it whatever they can name it, peaches.
A few weeks ago, on January 23rd, Venezuela's National Assembly, they are risking their future, they are risking their lives, and Venezuela's future. You've really put a big investment in our country. We appreciate it very much, Tim Apple.
I hope they now go and take a look at the oranges of the investigation, the beginnings.
In June of 1775, the Continental Congress created a unified army out of the revolutionary forces encamped around Boston and New York, and named after the great George Washington, Commander-in-Chief. Our army manned the air. It ran the ramparts. It took over the airports. It did everything it had to do. The kidney has a very special place in the heart. It's an incredible thing. In addition, up to 11,000 more Americans could receive heart, lung, and liver transplants annually. He was awarded the Bronze Star and the Combat Infantryman Badge for his service. Open wounds cannot heal if we are divided. We must seek real bipartisan solutions. This is the very definition of totalitarianism. When they gaze upon Yosemite's towering sequoias, their love of country grows stronger, and they know that every American has truly a duty to preserve this wondrous inheritance and to avoid liability, shifting production to Thailand and to Vietnam. I know words. I have the best words. But there's no better word than stupid, right? There is none.
You're listening to the Hit Back with Nahaja Black. We will be back right after this.
Winding road, you left me waiting here a long, long time ago. Don't leave me standing here. Lead me to your door.
This is Guardian Radio, your station for up-to-the-minute news, intelligent, interactive, and engaging conversation. 96.9 FM.
Beulah gal, can you believe this? We are now the patrol queens of the neighborhood.
We now large and in charge. So we need to check out what's going on in everybody's yard. What about that gun that we know that Junior and his homeboys just ran out? Can we report that too?
Of course we can.
But we could be in deep trouble if they find out. We need to report what we see, Beulah. When you call Crime Stoppers, they just answer your call in Miami.
So then we can report everything? Guns, where they hiding the drugs, who shoot who part of which gang, or who disturbing the peace with the loud music and the motorcycles.
Then our neighborhood will be the best in the Bahamas, and everybody gonna want to come live here. And then our house price will go up, gal.
So what we waiting on? What's the number?
If you see something, say something. Let us all pitch in and stop the crime before it's your time. Call 328-8477 from Nassau or 242-300-8477 from the Family Islands. Or text us through the Crack Crime Bahamas app. Stop the crime before it's your time.
Fidelity Bank is rewarding its customers with a free hurricane kit and a free COVID kit. Supplies are limited, so visit your home branch to collect your free hurricane kit and COVID kit today. As we continue to navigate these difficult times together, the safety and well-being of our colleagues and our loyal customers remain our top priority. Fidelity, we're good for you.
It's ugly, trust me. Get it right, dog. We ain't never left. We just move in silence and rep to the death. It's official. I survived what I've been through. Y'all got drama. The saga continues. We ain't going nowhere. We ain't going nowhere. We can't be stopped now, cause it's bad.
Trump ain't going nowhere, y'all. The hit back with Nahaja Black. Hope everybody's having a good one here on Guardian 96.9 FM. Trump ain't going nowhere. Y'all sleep. Don't worry. Eat your popcorn and then struggle through the stress of knowing that Trump ain't going nowhere. I'm working on my Biden gaffe clip as well. Now that one's funny. Trump one was okay, but Biden's was legit. Okay, so we got a lot of stuff to talk about today. As we continue to learn about what's going on with regard to the U.S. election, there are a lot of factors that will bring and change for us as the U.S. government continues to move forward. We are deeply connected with that country. Our ties are better rooted. We have a location benefit. There are more pros to being connected or tied to the U.S. than there are to being connected and tied with China. So we have to consider those. The U.S. is our partner, our ally, and the strategic advantage and disadvantage from not working within that friendship is very important. So we are going to watch these elections, also not with the reality show angle that I am going to be watching it with, but also with an additional angle of what does it mean for our economy. So, they say when the U.S. sneezes, the Bahamas catches a cold. Well, when the U.S. catches a pandemic and they can't control it, the Bahamas goes bankrupt. So now we are going to, and we have to, find ourselves opening up our country to other options, to the alternatives, to the present situation that we face right now today. So we are having the borders open, y'all, and the borders are open, and we are going to have guests come in. The guests are coming in. And the hotels have to find, or not just hotels, but vacation rentals. And I want to say this to everyone. If you have any space in your home, if you have family that y'all can get together. I know that there are banks who are not doing any lending now, so they're not helpful. There are banks, obviously, and I think the same bank that's not doing any lending is one of the same ones that has taken their branches from around the Family Islands. So you're going to find that lending is difficult. This is where we must be people who pool our resources and find trust. When you have no resource to pool, you pray, and then we get to work in terms of our mental ability. They can't take your mind. Education is a powerful tool. The more you learn, you strategize, you find a hustle. Ask yourself questions. The questions that you ask matter. If you ask yourself why I always broke, you'll get an answer. That may not be important, might not be helpful, but the one that you can ask is, how can I make, if I need $60 a day, how can I make $60 a day? What can I do to make $100 a day? Do I need to cut my receipts and my invoices into $10 per item? So I need to sell 10 items a day for $10 each. Can I sell 10 items? Or can I find bigger ticket items? Can I do a service that can give me, 10 $10, and so you have to begin to start at the end. I always say start at the end, and then re-engineer that thinking. Start at the end. What do you want? Then work towards that goal. You come backward and work toward that goal. So we have to now, looking at the prospects of the country, is that we got to be realistic. The reality of it is that the amount of people who are coming in will not be great at the beginning. The ability to house these folks won't be there. There is an opportunity for vacation renters in this country. There's a great opportunity for vacation renters in this country. Hear me. The reason why is because folks would prefer to be at a home that's, secluded, an apartment that doesn't have 60, 70 guests. Obviously, they do want to go on the beach. They want to get outdoors. So you got to have a selling pitch. How far are you? How close are you? Car is included, rental car attached to the deal. Some things you got to negotiate and figure out how to get people to come to your vacation rental. But there's a direct advantage. And if you don't have any monies, don't forget to take advantage of the small business development center, SBDC, or what they call it, the accelerator program. Access Accelerator. You have to start looking at these opportunities so that you can get yourself out of this, conundrum that we're in. However, as the economy is opening up, we are moving forward. We got to move forward. The United States they're going full speed ahead, full steam ahead, knowing full well that they're not doing well. I saw something that was quite interesting to me. Anyone who's been following the numbers are here locally are pretty, they make you feel good, right? The numbers will make you feel good if you saw the numbers. I saw some numbers today, and I'm going to, let you know some of the numbers that I saw. So I saw some numbers today, and I thought it was interesting. We were looking at cases, right, and how much the testing would be. And I looked at some numbers in terms of testing, and I wanted to share with you the last bit of information that I got on testing, the update 2017. The 2017 update on our numbers gave us, and I want to make sure I'm looking at it correctly. They have it at positive results today, 31, right? And we tested 140 people. So today yesterday, if all of this is, fine and dandy. Yesterday we had about 31 positive cases yesterday, right? And you say, well, Nahaja, why do you mention that? So we had 30 positive cases yesterday. And I thought that was fascinating for a lot of reasons. Personally, I really thought it was fascinating for a lot of reasons. And one of the reasons was the numbers are going down, but the testing is also going down. Yeah, the testing is going down. Right? So we had 31 tests yesterday, right? A number of hospitalized, so we've got all of that, but we had a total of 31 cases of positive, but the number of 140 tests, right? So the numbers are going down, but I asked the question, is the testing going down? So then on the 215th update, that we saw 189 tests completed, and we got a result of 21, right? So this is not bad. But what about how many were we testing prior? 442 tests were the update 2015. And if I remember correctly, for that update, that was the 31st of October, 442. So that's a big jump down from 442 to now 100 and some odd. And you said, well, Nahaja, maybe there are less positive cases. But the percentage of these positive cases, even within the small numbers, are pretty high. So you're still looking at 15% positivity rate or 22% positivity rate. October 25th, we were looking at 380 tests completed that day. The number of positives were 58. So let's go back. On the 25th of October, we had 380 tests completed, and we had a result of 58. Then on the 31st of October, we had 442 tests completed, 70 results positive. On the 1st of November, we had 189 tests completed and 21 positive results. And then we have on the 3rd of November, 140 tests completed and 31 positive results. Are we testing less? That's my question. My question is, are we testing less? Are we testing less? If we're testing less, then what do we do? What are we saying? Right? If we're testing less, I have a challenge with this. We're opening the borders, and are we testing less? Right? So I think that is important. I would like to know why the numbers seemingly are going down for testing. Whereas, is it because of the antigen tests that we aren't, confident with? What is the reason behind it? I don't know. I'm curious as to that. I don't know if you guys would be curious to me, because mind you, the percentages are still high. Even with the low numbers, the percentages of positives out of that low number is still high. We're still looking at 20% positive, which is far beyond the normal range. But at a lower testing number, we will get a lower positive number, but not a lower percentage of positives, if that makes sense. So then it may look like we are coming down off of the curve, but and the reason why I even went there was because I spoke with some doctors, and they're saying, well, Nahaja, it's kind of curious that we are saying, and in the numbers, you're seeing a trend in that it shows a positive trend that the numbers are going down. But in the hospitals and in the community clinics, we're seeing something that isn't corresponding with the numbers. That's what made me decide to look. So we moved from in the high or the low 400s, high 300s in tests to now 131 or 140 tests. So I'm curious as to why. I'm not saying that there's something I'm just saying, why are we testing less? Is this something that are we waiting for people to come to us? It can't be. Are we waiting for folks to come to us? Because I'm sorry, even if we are only testing 140 people and we get 31 positive, that's over 20%. That's over 20% positivity rate. I think it's important that these numbers be very transparent, that these numbers tell the right story. And I cannot, because I do believe that our people working in health are trying their best to give us the best information that they can. But I wonder if that can be explained. Why are we testing less? And is there any particular, of course, the concern should still be there that even if we tested just that few, that we're still over 20%, the concern is still there that there is community spread. Whilst we are opening borders, whilst we are now getting the somewhat the straight up discriminatory aspect of going on the beaches is open through the week whilst you and I are to work catching COVID. But on the weekend, we can't go, but the hotels can get that special amendment for the tourists. So whilst things are looking as if they're progressing and looking like things are going, we know full well that we have been warned not to travel because we will bring home the virus, right? Not the tourists. We will bring them home. And then we will have to pay for all of these extra ancillary things like the health system, like the testing, et cetera, et cetera. So it is very important that we look at these numbers and that these numbers are honest and transparent and that they're understandable, because if they are trending, if the test amount are going down precipitously, and we still have over 20% positivity rate, even in the small number, because the 215 update number 215, sorry, we were at about 15% out of that number positive COVID positive cases. And the 217 update, we were about 20% in positive numbers. So these are very important, though it sounds like we're going down. Though it says 31 positive cases. That's it. It said, oh man, this looks better. Eh? This sounds good. Instead of 73, we're at 31. We're coming down. But did you know that we were testing less? I bet you didn't realize we were testing less. And if we're testing less, and yet we're still getting that large amount of positives, that tells me, now mind you, that is a tiny sample size. I don't have, I think that 2017 was yesterday, right? So 217 update was yesterday. what if we looked at the past 17, the last 17 orders? How was the testing look? So, ladies and gentlemen, I wanted to bring that up to you so that perhaps anyone who has that can answer me that, riddle me this, on why we are seemingly testing less. Yeah? When we're bringing guests in, but we should be testing more so that we can get a handle on it and we don't put our guests at risk. That's a fascinating thing. I looked at those numbers and I said, wow, I wonder if there's a reason why. So if you happen to know the reason why that the testing numbers have gone down, I would love to hear it. I really would. If you know someone who can answer me that question, I would love to have them call the show and let us know why we seemingly are testing less in an open economy now, and that it is still very pervasive to me if we can test 140 people and 31 of those persons are positive, right? 31 of that 140 was positive, almost 20. That is over 20%. I think it was like about 22%. So that shows me that community spread is still happening. Now, what would have happened if we had 400 tests? What would that have shown? What number would we have come up with? Right? It would have. I'm just saying. Now, mind you, we could have had a bad batch and that would have been just like a really strong cluster. That's why more tests helps than less. If we had 400 tests done and only 31 were found to be positive, that would give us an indication. If we had continued with 400 a day for the last 15 days, and every 400 over the next 15 days, we see the decline, that would give us a better indication of if we are getting better. That is why the numbers and the testing matters. It tells us, are we getting better? Are our initiatives working are the weekend lockdowns working? That's the only way the Prime Minister can tell you that case, If he can show us consistent, same data, the data has to be seen, the standard has to be set. You cannot deviate from the standard, right? There has to be a standard. And then you add one differential item or one thing that changes, right? To help with the test, with the processing, right? So, I mean, we're looking at it as a model. Can the Prime Minister truly, based on the numbers, tell us that anything that he's doing, anything is the competent authority that he's doing, has given us any positive results? Can he truly say that? Based on the non-consistent taking of data. Every day for the next 30 days, they should have put 400 people. 400. Do it as a sample size, even only for 15 days. Someone give me a 4 by 15 calculation. What's 4 by 15, right? Sorry, I'm not good at math, so I'm just going to go with it. 4 by 15 would have meant 6,000 people, right? That's not a lot of people. 400 by 15 days would have given us 6,000 people we could have tested. And then you would have had yourself some sensible data. Is it going up? Is it going down? We do it from different areas. Let's see what's going on. But until you can tell me that the data is consistent, until you can tell me that it makes sense, you can't tell me that the weekend lockdowns work. We're now moving to the place where we're looking at numbers, and I have to show this again, just because I thought it was too amazing that that this was the standard, right? And I have to consider this in my mind when I look at this information, that I consider these things the standard, that we're looking at, I say October 25th. October 25th, we did 380 tests on October 25th. And we got a positivity result of 58, right? So we had 58 positive results out of 380. But then we went on October 31st. And on October 31st, we had, let me make sure I've got this right, because I got too many things open here. We've got 442 tests that day on October 31st. And we got 70 results, 70 positives, right? On 442 tests. And then some reason, on the 1st, we went to 189 tests, got 21 positive results. And then on the 3rd, we went to 140 tests and got 31 results. That's inconsistent. We don't know what's going on. And not knowing what's going on is the reason why I believe that we're going to continue to struggle with this pandemic. We need to know more information. The Prime Minister can't tell me right now how these weekend lockdowns are working. He can't, because he can't even, the numbers aren't even being honest to me to tell me that we're consistently trying to find data to tell us how we're doing. So if we can't do that, then what is all of this about, right? Someone says social distancing, wearing masks, washing hands, PCR tests, rapid testing. The Bahamas needs to test more to get a better picture of the situation. I agree, right? Someone says we need to continue with the same volume to get a better comparative analysis. I agree. We got a call on the line. Caller, you're on the hit back. Welcome.
Yes, sir. Good evening, Doc. How are you, sir? How are you?
I'm doing well, and you?
I'm all right. You know, the minister was saying that the number of tests went down because they only test when people display symptoms or when the needs for testing. So that went down. You see, had less people with symptoms. Therefore, the test went down. And then he also said that the percentage of positive went down.
From what to what? I'm curious. I need to see that, because to me, 20
with a very high percentage of tests. The test, percentage of the test came back positive. It was high, and it's now down to about 20% or something like that.
Boy, that last one didn't seem. That wasn't no 2%.
Or something like that. You know, and Ms. Black. See, we in this country, right? We want our government to offer all sorts of incentives and the like, right? But we don't want to pay taxes. When are we going to become progressive and tax the ones that are making the money in our country? When are we, you know, this economic thing? They talk about some farming. You know, we want to get to it. We need for us to feed ourselves. How come we don't feed ourselves?
No. I agree with you. And you do it with intention, right? And enough lip service with it, and just put a lot of money behind it. All the government needed to do was pick three things that they wanted in 5 years to be done.
And finally, the speaker, he really represented what politicians should be this morning on the show he was on. He talked about the separation of the executive, the legislative, and he said, and that's the only politician in the last, and only a parliamentary that speak for it. You understand me? That raised the concern. All of them, they just sit back.
Well, I know Reese Chipman has been a major proponent of it from before. The speaker's gotten a new voice, my friend. The speaker's gotten a new voice.
Remember, he spoke for that way back, and they try to make it sound like he wasn't talking about the separation.
No, he has been. He spoke about it from the seat before. You're right on that. He did speak about it before, saying that we needed to separate the legislative and the executive.
He's the only one that's worthy of being in them halls. He's the only one that represented all of them Uncle Toms. We talk about when Republicans, when we do best. We do best how making a best. We a bunch, and then the minister this morning talked about. See, 2/3 of us as works in a hotel makes a bed as far as they're concerned. Three-quarters of our job in this country is what? Tourist related?
Yeah.
Come on, let's we make up this bed. We a bunch of Uncle Toms. We a bunch of house
My brother. My brother, I appreciate the call. I will say this: the speaker's newfound voice is refreshing. It's amazing. It's coming down to the end of the tenure, and perhaps as his. I won't say that. Needless to say, the speaker's voice is new, but he has always spoken. But he spoke out about it one time with regard to the autonomy of the House, the executive, and the legislature, and how that it was unfair, it was unethical, it was wrong that governments in charge, administrations, would use the executive branch of government to hold the legislative in order. So there wasn't much autonomy. So I can make you a permanent a parliamentary, what do you call it? Parliamentary secretary. I can make you a chairman. I can make you this. I can make you that. And that makes you tied somewhat, not a chairman, but makes you tied to an executive branch here. So there are ways in which to keep everybody happy, 4 checks, 2 meets, all that stuff. Good evening to everybody who is following us live on online on Facebook and on YouTube. Don't forget, you can subscribe, like, and share to these pages. We are live on Guardian 96.9 FM. I am concerned all about the numbers. I am. I won't lie to you. I think that there are. We should be testing more. The testing numbers have gone down, and yet the positive numbers, 22%, the last one, 141. Let me make sure I got my calculation right. I'll make sure that I have it right. So we had 141 tests done, 140 tests done, 31 were positive. 31 were positive, right? And so, ladies and gentlemen, that gave us a total of 22%. A little over 22%. So 22% positivity rating. We go through the numbers. We see that we're reducing the amount tested. So it will give us a smaller total positive number. But if we're waiting for people to come to us, I don't know. I think that's interesting. So we're still waiting for people to come to us? I'm concerned. I'm concerned. If we want to talk about being progressive, if you want Bahamians to do their job, you want us to be responsible. You want us to not travel, right? You want us to take this burden on, additional burdens on of responsibility, onus. The Prime Minister said it out loud that Bahamians are the cause without any true data of it. The data that he's basing it on is the same data we're trying to understand today. The data from the contact traces, where I can tell you at least 10 stories right now of Bahamians who said they've never been contacted by contact tracers. These are Bahamians. So you really mean to tell me you think that they were tracing and contact tracing a foreigner? A foreigner who doesn't live here? You mean to tell me that they were doing well at contact tracing that? Never happened. Never happened in a million years. We got 111 contact traces. And that is still insufficient, because I can give you 10 more cases tomorrow where people haven't been contacted. And super spreader events or super spreader persons in police or health who have spread the virus, and I guarantee you the people around them, a lot of people around them have not been tested. So those numbers, I'm buying. You're listening to the Hit Back with Nahaja Black. When we come back, we've got economist Rupert Pinder joining us, Professor Rupert Pinder joining us, because I want to get a sense of what does all of these economics mainstream things mean. The central bank governor said some interesting things, and we're going to talk about that. But ask your people, do these numbers make sense? We'll be back right after that.
I'm mad. Got to get back. I need some get back. Payback. Payback. That is. Payback. Revenge. I'm mad. You get down with my girlfriend. That ain't right. Holland cuss. On the bank. Payback.
This is Guardian Radio 96.9 FM, Nassau, Bahamas.
You're listening to Headline News over the Guardian News Network. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Julian Gray. Here's what our news team is working on. Health Minister Renward Wells is praising the dramatic decline in daily COVID-positive cases. The numbers, which have plummeted in recent weeks from triple digits to the low 20s, is not a result of a drop-off in testing, which has also decreased, according to Wells.
The Bahamas had a positivity rate of 32% at the height of this pandemic. The positivity rate now is down around 12% as of today. So it's safe to say that the rate of transmission of COVID-19 in the Bahamas is down.
Meantime, Bahamian Americans are weighing in on the U.S. elections. Many have called this year's election historic, and natives of the Bahamas who now reside in the United States agree. They say voting is important to ensure their voice is heard. While vendors at a popular pop-up park are shaken after thieves hit their booths over the weekend. One vendor at Tinfurl lost hundreds of dollars of goods. Last month, police shut down the operation because vendors didn't have the correct licenses. Well, that issue has been resolved. However, Tinfurl co-founder Brandon Kemp says the vendors at the park are still suffering. And more than a dozen police officers and members of the Neighborhood Watch program were honored during the Commissioner's Commendation Honors Ceremony. Honorary Superintendent Cashwell Hanna said programs like Neighborhood Watch help foster close relationships. That's what our news team is working on at this hour. I'm Julian Gray. Do stay tuned as AP News is up next.
The voters decide. I'm Tim McGuire with an AP News Minute. In Kenosha, Wisconsin.
I hope it's a big red wave throughout the country.
Trump voter Roger Kriebel. Jason Beck cast a different ballot this time in Kenosha.
2016, I made a mistake. I voted for Trump. Just felt that it was time for something different, and that was a big mistake.
During a visit to his campaign headquarters in Washington, President Trump said there's no reason for the election results to take long.
You have to have numbers. You can't have these things delayed for many days and maybe weeks. You can't do that. The whole world is waiting. This country is waiting, but the whole world is waiting.
More than 100 million people have already voted by mail and early voting, and a large turnout has been reported today, meaning it will take election officials longer to count the ballots. Former Vice President Joe Biden traveled to his boyhood home in Scranton, Pennsylvania.
It feels good. With that old expression, it ain't over till it's over.
I'm Tim McGuire.
This is Guardian Radio, 96.9 FM, Nassau, Bahamas.
We've made the switch. Commonwealth Bank now offers safer and more secure online banking with 24-hour one-time password authentication. OTP is an alphanumeric series of characters that authenticates the user for each cash transaction. A new and unique password that's secure every single time. For immediate assistance, please visit your home branch or contact the call center at 242-502-6159. For further information, visit our website at www.combankltd.com. Commonwealth Bank, leader in personal banking services.
Cancer is smart. It pushes us. We push back. Challenging conventional thinking, finding smarter solutions. That's what makes Cancer Treatment Centers of America one of the leaders in precision cancer treatment, using tools like advanced genomic testing and immunotherapy to bring more options to our patients. Cancer Treatment Centers of America. We're not just fighting cancer anymore. We're outsmarting it. Visit cancercenter.com/outsmart to learn more.
This is Guardian Radio, 96.9 FM, Nassau, Bahamas.
That's right. I think there will be an exodus. My concern is, will there be any violence? Dude, this is going to be one heck of a reality special ending. Yeah, a reality special ending. Someone says the government is trying to do all it can in trying to get a handle on the situation so our commerce can be restored to some normalcy. So the narrative of discrimination is flawed. You know what? To some extent, I agree. I understand what you're saying. The narrative of discrimination may be flawed because they're trying to manage it. They're trying to manage the pandemic, and so there's a give and take, a push and a pull. The problem is that it seems as if the ones who sacrifice the most are the ones who are asked the most of, which is the Bahamian people. We are asked the most of. We are asked to sacrifice the most and give the most. And so therefore, the government must find a way to create a better balance, right? To create a better balance where Bahamians don't feel as if we are considered last in our own country as we struggle to ensure that the guests feel special. But and that is a continual narrative that we as the citizenry are always telling others you are special, but we are never treated special. So we go out of our way to make the guests feel special, to make the guests feel like they are unique and somewhere where they are are fawned over and adored because that is tourism. Somewhere, somehow, though, we are considered only the help. We are only the help even in our country. And that is a problem. When the Bahamian has to pile up at the beach, at the 3 beaches that exist for us, and then there's ridicule of us catching COVID because we hang out, when you realize that all of the beaches, most, if not 85% of the beach access in this country, if not more, is owned by the fortunate few. So then that one thing that heals your spirit, that we understand heals your spirit. There's a study talking about those people who ride around the coast are healthier who take the coast view home. How many of us got a coast view home? How many of us got a coastal view? There's a study that says that people who take the coastal view tend to be healthier and live just a little bit longer. That's just the view of it. That's why people love beachfront. There's a view of it, the sound of it. But yet, when we're to work, the beaches are open. So I got to duck work, right? But on the weekends, when I can, I can't. Because we too pile up, right? But there's only 3 of them. Sanders in New Providence anyway. If you live in the Family Islands, you're fortunate, right? You're fortunate if you live in the Family Islands. They might still lock you up anyway. But if you live in the Family Islands, man, shout out to you. You are fortunate in New Providence. Might as well call this concrete jungle, right? So that is the challenge there. We are made to be told we got to make sure everybody's dead happy and feel so comfortable and welcomed and loved and all of that stuff. Whereas we are told just go to work. Go to work, come home. People are mentally breaking in this process. And I understand that it is a narrative that's difficult, that folks are not comfortable with that some, it is discriminatory. The government has to push and pull, but the government also has a responsibility to govern with a hand that understands that their citizenry, this is who we work for, your citizenry. Your citizenry is who you work for. These are the people who voted you in. How can we make sure that our people feel loved? And that they know that there is a value and a standard for our people that we will not allow them to get to. So that's that challenge in the balancing act. Without further ado, I'm going to welcome my guest today. And I'm trying to figure out why my guest does not have his camera on. But we shall see. Professor, economist, Mr. Rupert Pinder. Mr. Pinder, how you doing?
I'm good. Can you hear me?
I can hear you well. It's a pleasure to have you on the show today.
Thank you.
All right. Well, we've got some interesting things to talk about. So as the days of the day has gone on, Central Bank has issued, and Governor Roll has issued some interesting comments today in terms of the prospective inflow of money, right? The prospective cash flow that we should be expecting and were to expect in 2021. Where we are financially, fiscally, and then also as we look at the U.S. election. So there's a lot to talk about, Professor Rupert and Professor Pinder. And so I wanted us to chat, briefly on the topic of the economy. Now, you've done very well in projecting the economy since this whole pandemic has started. And I wanted to just get your thoughts on where we are and where do you see us financially, fiscally, at any point in the near future?
Well, first off, I think at the outset, I think it's important to say that things are still very much fluid, right? Because even when I had made the projections at the beginning of the year, I think when I gave the address at Rotary Club, I think I projected a deficit of over 1.6 billion thereabouts. And when the estimates came out, I think for the budget communication in May, we were certainly hovering somewhere within that area. But again, that was and even that was made on certain assumptions in terms of us opening by October of this year. And I think it was around September, October that those projections were based on. And as you well know, we opened on Sunday, which is November 1st. So again, a lot of things are quite fluid. But what we do know here is this: is that we've had to borrow a lot. To really be able to cover some things where we have the fiscal deficit and that sort of stuff. Well, rather, because as you would know, that there was a $600 million. Recently, the government went to the market for $600 million, I think, to to cover some rumblings, I think, from the last fiscal period, and I think, if I'm not mistaken, I think like close to 300 million is going to hit this year's budget, thereabouts. Yeah.
So what do you see? So you're seeing now, if we look at this, yeah, we had the projections, but 2021, how do you see us in terms of our dollar value? Do you believe that we're probably going to have to borrow again, but what do you forecast based on what you think would be best practice for next year?
Well, I think Governor Rowland, and again, I just saw the newspaper just in passing, so I haven't really had a chance to really necessarily focus a lot on it. But I think and again, I stand to be correct. I think he's forecasting in terms of a return to some pre-2019 numbers. I think somewhere around 2023 thereabouts. I think, because I think the forecast is being pushed even further out. So 2021, I think will be. I think we will still, even up until maybe the fourth quarter of 2021, we will still be in the recovery stage. There's no question about that.
And the recovery stage being, how much? Because recovery is an interesting word. I mean, recover to what point? Like, are we talking about?
Well, first, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No. You go ahead.
No. I mean, right now, I think. Even if you were to look in terms of the Economic Recovery Committee's report, I think they've broken it, I think, like about three areas. One is really in terms of stabilization, some short-term proposal, and obviously in terms of some medium to long-term. But right now, the emphasis is really on stabilizing the economy, because one of the things that you have to consider here is that, and I'm not here necessarily at this stage to really discuss in terms of the merits or so on and so forth in terms of the lockdowns. I mean, that's certainly a very interesting debate for the health officials. But of course, I mean, I have my view from an economic standpoint. But when you have a lockdown, and particularly in terms of the weekends, you have to consider that it's not just a Saturday or whatever. You have to consider that potentially, particularly for the retail sector, and I guess I'll go out on a limb and say as much, that I would hazard to guess that perhaps 30 to 40% of their sales are made on the weekend.
Yes.
Right? And so when you consider that it's not just in terms of a Saturday and, okay, well, you have the other 5 days in terms of shopping. And of course, there are limited stores that obviously open on Sundays. But if you were to consider that it's not just one day out of a 7-day week, you have to consider that that's potentially 30 to 40% of your revenue streams that are taken away as a result of the lockdown. So what I'm saying here is that it's not so much in terms of really debating as to whether or not we should have had the lockdown or not or whatever. I'm just looking at it from an economic reality. And to the extent to which, let us just say, if we were to make the assumption that 30, 40% of revenues or sales are lost for some retail businesses as a result of not being able to conduct trade on Saturdays, you got to consider in terms of some of the other consequences as a result of that. One being in terms of the government's revenues,
Right.
Because the value-added tax is also based on government revenues as well. Of revenues of the companies. And so to the extent to which you've had a reduced revenue base, that obviously impacts government revenues by way of the value-added tax. And an extension of that is really to the extent in terms of how that impacts in terms of your fiscal position. And the other thing to note here as well is that because of this widening fiscal deficit, when you talk about a fiscal deficit, you're really looking at the extent to which government expenditure exceeds overall revenues.
Exactly. Being able to pay our bills.
And when you talk about in terms of a widening fiscal deficit, what you would also note as well is that a lot of our borrowings is also coming by way of foreign currency. And there's a reason for that. And the reason why we have had to look in terms of a lot by way of foreign currency borrowing is that we have to find a way to bolster the foreign reserves.
Okay.
Right? Yeah, because...
Makes sense. Because
really that's... The foreign reserves is what is needed to pay for your imports. And most people don't even consider it's also to help service your existing foreign currency debt as well. Now, I must say that in my view, I think, in my view, that the central bank, I think, under the circumstances, I think, in my view, has done a commendable job,
Yes.
given in terms of the hand that has been dealt with in this pandemic. And I'm talking about in terms of the management of foreign reserves. Because what the bank did, which I thought was quite prudent, is that, well, one of the things that they do is really in terms of limit, in terms of the foreign transactions. So one of the things that they did was that they, I think they suspended the remittances of profits. So like,
right,
for
so
example,
no dividends.
Yeah, so, well, in particular in terms of the dividends that are earned by foreign companies, I think particularly the bank, I think stood out for me. I think it was more, particularly in terms of the bank. So in terms of the remittances of those profits.
Oh, so their profits are not going out of country right now.
Well, I know. I certainly remember in the early stages. I don't know what it is today.
Yeah, I remember that earlier as well.
Right.
When we were talking about 3 years deferral for mortgages and all of that was around the same time.
And there was also a suspension or deferral in terms of foreign transaction, in terms of real estate purchases in foreign currency. There's some persons who are dealing in money markets, and that's sometimes the foreign currency is also suspension of that. And another highlight as well is that $100 million of funds that national insurance had invested abroad. That was liquidated, and the proceeds are sent back home. And so all of that helps to bolster the foreign reserves. And so as a result of that, I think the last report, I think, was even like around August. We're still hovering like around somewhere around the $2 billion mark in terms of foreign reserves. But the other aspect of it too is that one of the unintended consequences is that because the tourism sector, in terms of your principal properties, Bahama, Atlantis, is being closed, it means that there was also not that big demand on your foreign reserves as well. Because don't forget, the tourism sector generates a lot by way of foreign currency, but it also is a big user, if you want to put it that way, of your foreign currency as well.
Really?
All of these, so those sort of things.
Sorry, just if you don't mind, if you're just tuning in, you're listening to The Hit Back with Nahaja Black. We're chatting with economic professor Rupert Pinder, economist here in the Bahamas, noted economist here in the Bahamas, and someone who's well sought after by the media for his thoughts on these matters. You said something that's interesting. You said that the tourism sector is also a big spender of our foreign reserve, obviously for the things that we import then?
Yeah, I mean, but one of the things here is that the tourism sector is, there's a lot by way of import content, right, with respect to the tourism sector, and that is due largely to the fact that we produce very little, right? So when you look in terms of, let's say, in terms of these large properties, yes, I mean, there is a lot that you would perhaps say that stays within the domestic economy to the extent to which they source from local suppliers. But even if you would look in terms of, let's say, the food import, in terms of your tourism sector, let's say they go and they deal with a big wholesaler in terms of the food import. That food import, for the most part, is imported. So a lot of the content with respect to the tourism sector, there's a high percentage of that is really by way of import content.
Okay. Now, let me ask you this. So we're talking about the economy, the drivers of the economy, and where we stand today. So as we look at the state of the economy, Professor Pinder, I'm curious as to when you look at the politics of our economic style, so our political economy, what do you foresee for us with and I'm sure you're looking at this from that viewpoint as well, with a Biden, what's the difference between a Biden victory in the United States with the handling of this pandemic, you believe, versus a Trump presidency with the handling of this pandemic? Or does the pandemic even matter with regard to whom is the prime minister, but our economy can bounce back either way? I'm curious as to how you view the political economy in the landscape of an election that's happening tonight.
Boy, it's interesting. That's an interesting one. I'm almost tempted to pick on that one because Well, that's an interesting one. I mean, what I do know is this is that whether it's President Trump or whether it's Biden for the Bahamas and by the extension the Caribbean, it's in everybody's interest to the extent to which the United States is able to manage this pandemic. And I think there is enough to show that, and I will go on a limb and say that I think there's perhaps a lot by way of the evidence or the anecdotal evidence, certainly. This suggests that, a lot of these developing countries, including the United States, have not done a very good job, in my view, in terms of managing the pandemic. And so when you consider that 90% of our trade, including tourism, is conducted with the United States, any disruption to that economy obviously will have some adverse impact for the Bahamas. So it's in everybody's interest in terms of managing the pandemic. Now, in terms of whether or not a Trump versus a Biden, in terms of who will do a better job, again, I guess you're really pushing me to go on a limb, and I guess not play it safe. But let's, I would say as much. If one start off with the premise that, hey, look, that perhaps a better job could have been done in terms of these developed economies, and we're talking specifically in terms of the United States, with respect to the managing the pandemic. I can't imagine that country doing any worse.
Worse. So, I had a feeling that's what you were going to say.
So on that note, I would leave it for people to draw their conclusion based on what I've said.
Well, I know that was good. Way to play it safe-ish. That was safe-ish, right? Professor Rupert Pinder on the show with us. All right, Professor Pinder. So then we have this next question. Because I somewhat asked it, but I'm just going to go to it. If we were remaining the same, well, first before that, there is always a lag with when there is a depression or recession in the United States, we tend to feel it as a lag. There is some sort of lag time between the real impact of when we as citizens begin to feel it. With COVID-19, obviously, this is an instantaneous feeling of it, because once the United States lost its mind with COVID-19, it became our problem as well. If you are looking at normally under economic processes, when we go back to the global pandemic, the global economic crisis in 2008, how long would you have said that we began to feel the effects of that crisis, that financial crisis there?
And that's a very interesting question. And again, I mean, I don't have all of the data in front of me, but I guess what I would go out on a limb and say, and that is that whenever there is a downturn with respect to any shocks to the system, you feel it immediately. However, when the source of that shock, let us say in the case of the United States, when there's a recovery and when they're on a path of the growth, the positive effects, there's always a lag period. So in other words, when the blow is delivered, you feel it immediately. However, when it starts to improve, there's a lag before the pain goes away. Right, in the case of small economies like ours.
Yes.
And certainly one of the things that I remember distinctly in terms of with respect to the last crisis, in terms of the financial crisis around 2008 thereabouts, it took us, if I'm not mistaken, maybe around 2014, 15 before you really saw a solid recovery.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. So it took some time.
And even in the United States, even despite the bailout, because remember, one of the things that President Obama did in terms of coming to office, and at that time, I thought he had assembled an A1 economic team, because I think people like Larry Summers, who came from the World Bank and who's now a professor at Harvard University, those were the kind of people that were on Obama's team. So there were some really heavy hitters. Even his budget person, I'm trying to remember the name, it escapes me. But he had some very good people who were part of his economic team. And so one of the things that he did, you had the bailout of the AIG, you have the bailout of General Motors, etc. And so even when the economy was showing a lot of signs by way of recovery in terms of the stock market, one of the more stubborn numbers was the unemployment numbers. So even though you're seeing a lot of positive signs in terms of the US economy, the unemployment number was quite stubborn in terms of moving. And likewise, one of the things that you find, so the unemployment numbers in the United States were very stubborn, and I do remember that. So while it was showing very, very strong economic growth rate
Exactly.
in terms of the GDP numbers, the unemployment number was very, 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 very slow to move. And there there are any number of theoretical explanations for that. But nevertheless, I mean, that number was very, very, very slow to move. And so the translation to that is that when you see the unemployment numbers in the United States are very, very, very slow to move, it means that persons obviously will have less by way of disposable income. And so as a result of that, tourism, for the most part, traveling is considered more or less, I would say, a luxury of sort in terms of a non-essential. I mean, for persons who are your middle income and lower middle income. And so obviously it would affect trade like tourism as an example. And so, it was not difficult to see in terms of how the recovery would have been kind of slow, even in the case of the Bahamas, considering how slow or how stubborn the unemployment numbers were moving in the case of the United States.
So then when we look at what has been presented to us, right? When we look at, and I just had up on the screen a document, today's clippings with Governor Roll talking about how the forecast for tourist numbers will be lower in 2021 than previously predicted. When we look at this lag, right now, the United States not being able to get their pandemic under control. We're not even talking about a recovery based on a healthy America. America is not healthy yet. So then I would gather that the timeline that Mr. Rowland speaks about is, he knows this quite well, that we are looking at something where the United States isn't healthy. So we're not even in the lag period of they're doing better, and so we're going to start doing better later. They're still sick. So I gather that the IMF's reporting of 2024 being that when we start to see real recovery levels, is accurate. Would you say that that's accurate?
Yeah, I mean, one of the things is that I obviously would have to, rely on the kind of data that the Governor Rowe would have, right? And I consider him to be, I mean, obviously, that's obviously a credible source, and he would obviously
yes,
he would obviously have the data in terms of supplied by the international agencies, including the IMF. But one of the things that I do know is that, in my view, I still consider the situation to be a bit fluid. And so even when you look at a recovery, maybe the end of 2023, maybe going into 2024, but let us say even if you were to look in terms of 2023, we're not even in 2021. And then, of course, there's a lot of talk in terms of, the progress that we would make in terms of a vaccine and so on and so forth. So again, even when you look in terms of projections, even for projections which are based on very good science, and when I say science, I'm talking like the science of statistics and all that kind of good stuff. Even for those sound projections, they're always based on a set of assumptions, right? Which may or may not turn out to be the case as the further you go out in terms of the future.
Okay, so that's like any forecasting, eh?
Yeah, the more there is in terms of uncertainty.
Right.
So again, so today, looking at things and assuming that perhaps, in terms of vaccine, in terms of trials and all of that sort of thing, it's not unreasonable to, to assume that. But again, it depends on, what happens in 2021. You may decide to revise some of those things, and hopefully, better revision in terms of. In other words, you land on the good side to the extent to which you say, well, okay, things are turning out much better than you anticipated.
Yeah, and that's the hope. The hope is that things turn out better than we anticipate. I wonder, For me, that I look at those things and it helps to give me some form of footing to make better decisions. So as an economist and someone, your personal life, you look at this and you're looking at the future through a forecasting lens, through data that you've acquired, right? And then you say, okay, well, this will be the situation here. So I must prepare this way. So situation X is here, so I must prepare for situation X. Knowing that it could change for the better or it could change for the worse, but this is what we're seeing, so we prepare. How would you tell my listeners, listen, this is what I see from my expertise, and this is how I would recommend you prepare, because I would like for people to know that the study of economics helps them to prepare in their personal life as well. So Mr. Professor Pinder, how would you tell my audience and myself to look at the data, look at the information that's presented, look at what you see with your eyes, understand relatively with a good bit of common sense what you forecast and how to prepare? What would you say?
Well, I must say, Nahaja, in terms of giving my thoughts, I'm also going to take notes so that I can take it on myself. I'm also going to be talking to myself as well as I speak.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to be taking notes, eh?
Good.
In my view, and sometimes I get in trouble in terms of maybe in terms of how I view things.
Good trouble. They say good trouble.
I think it's always good to prepare for the worst case scenario. That's the first thing. That's my view in terms of planning, in terms of your finances. So, for example, somebody will say, well, you give them $5 and say, well, okay, I'll spend this $5 and the good man above will take care of me, and so on and so forth, rather than, let us say, being prudent in terms of how you spend. Now, the reality of it is that a lot of people are really stretched. So from my vantage point to say, well, hey, look, people really should be looking in terms of, hey, look, how they can save, etc. I mean, some people just consider this to be just pure theoretical, whatever.
Right.
Because the reality of it is that for some person who's been furloughed and working maybe 2 days out of the week, if they are lucky, or totally unemployed, and the bills are coming in and there's really no level of income, you cannot have a discussion in terms of savings. The reality of it here is that I think, it doesn't matter in terms of how dire the situation is. I do think that you have to sit down with pen and paper, and you really have to look in terms of what are the essentials, eh? Because when you really look in terms of your spending sometimes, and again, I do recognize that there are persons who really don't have any way by way of any sort of discretionary spending, but there are some who have those sort of discretionary spending. And I think they really have to look in terms of, hey, look, how they can cut out the fat. I think that this is the time that, for example, let's say you've been employed in the hotel sector, and you've been, I don't know, a top-rated chef or whatever, I think you really have to divorce yourself in terms of how you behave during good times, and perhaps take on certain jobs or certain income-bearing activities that you may not have ordinarily looked at or considered during the good times. So, for example, if you have a particular skill set, maybe in terms of cooking or whatever, perhaps, I don't know, serving food out of your trunk. I mean, it seems unheard of for somebody who may have been, I don't know, a top-rated chef or whatever, or a cook or whatever. At the same time, too, I mean, you may have had certain skill set that you've considered to be a very hobby. You have to look in terms of how you can monetize that. And the other thing about it, too, is that I think we use the internet, myself included, we don't use it properly. And we have to consider that the internet today is also a marketplace in terms of how you can monetize a lot of the activity, in terms of, so you should really be using the internet and saying, well, hey, look, what is it that I can sell to a world outside of the Bahamas?
Let me ask you something, Professor Pinder, before we go. If you were to say, like in the Bible, there were 7 years of famine, 7 years of plenty. I'm looking now, how many, if you were, if I was a good prophetess, how many good years would we have left? But not good years. But how many years do you think we should, or months or time period, would be considered the worst amount of time before we can see an economic recovery. The longest. I hope it doesn't go any longer. And I think 2024 is way too long. But if the data persists in that, if we're continuing to trend in that way, then it makes sense. But worst case scenario, based on the data you see now, would be the what year?
Yeah, but and again, I have no problems in terms of saying this because again, it's just by way of prediction. If I'm proven wrong, fine. I think it's really to our benefit. But what I would say here is this: is that, and these are some things perhaps to keep in mind, and that is this: is that right now the emphasis should be, or the emphasis in my view should be placed on stabilization. When I say stabilization, to the extent to which you can really get the boat, plug some of the holes and really try to stabilize things. So we're not even quite at recovery. If you were to use the analogy in terms of a patient, right? A patient is just going through a catastrophic event, right? Before you can even talk about recovery, the first thing is that you need to talk about in terms of stabilization.
That's right. Make sure we don't die on the table.
And for me, so one of the things here is this, and this has been a pet peeve of mine, even in terms of looking at the economic recovery report. And in my view, and I don't want to necessarily segue too much into that, but in my view, and I'll be the first to say, I think it's commendable to the extent to which a lot of work has gone into it. In terms, and I'm sure that whoever put it together, it must have been a task in terms of getting all of those recommendations and try everybody, having their piece or whatnot and putting that into a document, or at least in terms of a summary. However, in my view, the first order of business before we can start thinking about this long range sort of thing is the stabilization of the economy. And
I agree.
For me, the stabilization really comes down to this. It's opening this economy in a safe, responsible way. I mean, to me, that is the simplest way I can look at it in terms of some sort of stabilization, and everything else follow. In my view, I think in terms of where we are at, because don't forget now, COVID-19 has come on the heels of Dorian, right? We've had major dislocation with respect to the economy. And another thing I would say here as well, because we speak a lot about the economic calamities associated with Hurricane Dorian and COVID-19. But I wouldn't say necessarily be the first, because I'm sure you would have heard it from in other quarters. But we must not lose track of it that the problem that we face is come about as a result of successive administration in terms of some very, very bad economic decisions.
Yes.
And we must not lose track of that, eh?
We can't.
The COVID-19 and Hurricane Dorian has only exposed by way of the major cracks in the foundation. And the thing about it is that notwithstanding that everybody talks about how we're planning for 15, 20 years, politicians only see 5-year cycles. And we continue to limp from one election to the next, and everybody having a party, and then we move on, right? Once the music stop, and then you see the cracks within the foundation. So COVID-19 and Hurricane Dorian has only exposed the major cracks within the foundation. Now, we are where we are, and so we cannot spend a lot of time looking back. But in my estimation, it's going to take us, I think, at least 5 to 6 years. Minimum before we get to some of these pre-COVID numbers. I mean, and when I say pre-COVID numbers, and I'm hoping at the time people will be shortened. But the other thing we must not lose track on, and that is the boogeyman in the closet, and that boogeyman is by way of debt. Now we could have a debate from now until the cows come home in terms of why we had to accumulate the debt. And I am not saying that perhaps it's not justified, because again, we are where we are. But the reality of the situation here is this: is that when you have a national debt, now I saw a figure in terms of the $9 billion. I have to look again to see whether the $9 billion also include the contingency debt, which are the debts taken on by way of the public corporations. Because I know for successive budget communications, What we tend to do is that when we look at the debt to GDP, we only look at the debt with respect to central government, and we tend not to talk about that $800 to $900 million, which is accumulated by way of these public corporations,
Such as BPL,
water and
Yep.
sewage,
BTC,
ZNS,
I think
and
so, yep.
on, and so on and so forth, right? We tend not to, we always focus on that debt, which by way of central government. And
But
the
we're
reality
responsible
of,
for the others, yes.
The reality of the situation here is this, is that to the extent to which those public corporations are not in the position to service their own debt, that debt becomes not just in terms of the de facto, but that is really in reality the debt of the Bahamas government, and therefore so therefore should be accumulated. And so the point I want to make is that as we accumulate more and more debt, we actually have to pay out more by way of debt servicing, which also has an impact on the expenditures. So if the economy starts growing very strong, that gap between your revenues and expenditures starts to even widen.
Professor, hold on. We have to do this. I have to do a part 2 with you very soon because I have some other guests I have to bring on, and we're a few seconds late on that. But I want to tell you so much that this conversation, and we just started to get heated up. That's what it's just getting into.
I think you're getting me in trouble, eh? But
no, never. This is where we were getting really to the heat and to the meat of the matter. I thank you so much. We are going to have to do this again, and I hope we can arrange for it for next week, early next week, same time perhaps, so that we can continue this conversation, because I think you hit on something there as well, the debt of central government and the boogeyman of debt. DEBT, that's going to really be there. That isn't a boogeyman, man. I think that's a clear and day walking monster. But Professor Rupert Pinder, thank you so much for joining me. I'm saddened to see us that we have to break here, but we will continue this next week. Thank you so much.
Thank you too, Natasha.
All righty. All right. So we have joining us now we're going to take, let's not take a quick, Kermit, do I have to take a break? Kermit said no. So then let's go. We're going to have joining us right now a group from IRCA, the Utilities Commission, right? So the Utilities Regulatory Body. I can't remember all of IRCA's titles, but I know Mrs. Johnson is going to make sure I get it right. We're going to welcome a wonderful young lady. Hello, Mrs. Johnson. How are you?
Good afternoon. Good evening. I'm great. And yourself? Mavis Johnson Colley.
Johnson, how are you, Mavis? All is well with you?
All is well. Thank you. And yourself?
I'm doing well, and I see that we have Siobhan Cambridge joining us as well from IRCA. First off, thank you guys so much for joining us. I know that you have something interesting that you want to tell my audience a bit about, and I know that time is always of the essence, so I won't hold up anymore. Ms. Johnson Colley, tell us a bit about what IRCA is up to these days.
Okay, well, first let's just get some things correct. It's the Utilities Regulation and Competition Authority, which is the independent regulator for two sectors currently, the electricity sector and the electronic communication sector. And because we only have a few moments, I'm not going to stay on the scene too long, but we wanted to share with your listeners the importance of them participating in an ongoing consultation process that has to do with the finalization of consumer protection regulations for consumers in the electricity sector. And so I know that it's going to generate quite a bit of feedback and reactions. And so we wanted to share with your audience. We know that you have a large following, and we did not want them to lose out on the opportunity to have a say in what they feel and how they feel consumer protection regulations should shape up. And before I bring on our expert in the field, the director of the utilities and electricity sector in the country at IRCA, let me just say that in 2014, we would have rolled out consumer protection regulations for the electronic communication sector. In 2015-16, we had the Electricity Act, which mandated that all those entities that received a license from IRCA to supply electricity, that they develop an approved consumer protection plan. But not only that they develop one, the heavy mandate is on IRCA to ensure that consumers are protected, to ensure that there are consumer protection regulations in place, and that we also have a plan.
Yes.
And so our plan, they cannot give any, the licensees cannot provide anything that's less or less stringent. It can be more stringent, but it cannot be less than what we provide. And so we initially thought that we would combine the regulations for both sectors. We put that out to consultation earlier in the year. And based on the feedback, and this is why it's so important for your listeners to understand the importance of their feedback. Because of the feedback we received primarily from the major players, major licensees, IRCA is now back at the drawing board and it's separating the regulations. And so we now have out for consultation proposed draft regulations to protect consumers of electricity. That consultation
Really
comes to a close on Monday. It's been out there for a month. Some of the media houses pick it up. We've had it on our website, and we thought it now with this last week. You know what? We're not getting the kind of responses we want.
That's
we don't
right.
Want just the major stakeholders, the licensees, to be the only persons who comment. We want regular folks, regular consumers to comment. And so we have with us this afternoon the director for that sector, Devon Cambridge, and I want him to tell us some of the nitty-gritty, some of the things that the consumer protection regulations or the consumer protection plan will cover for consumers in the US.
Thank you so much, Ms. Johnson-Colley. Mr. Cambridge, welcome.
Good afternoon or good evening, Miss Black, and good evening, Bahamas.
Listen, it's a pleasure to have you on. Tell us a bit about this. I'm excited.
Yeah, while I was right here, I was getting wrapped up in Professor Pinder's presentation. I almost forgot what I came here to talk about. Very interesting show.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, so basically what we have, as Ms. Colley would have outlined, is that we are in the process of trying to establish consumer protection regulations for the electricity sector. As most consumers or most of the public would know or be familiar with, the consumer protection standards that are currently in place for the electronic communication sector. As Ms. Colley mentioned, this project started off as an attempt to refresh the consumer protection regs for the ECS and add in the relevant aspects of consumer protection for the electricity sector. But the feedback that we got during that initial consultation was that in combining the two, it kind of really made it a little confusing for the consumers that we were seeking to assist with understanding what their rights are with regard to these obligations. So we took the advice. I want people to know that we're not a hard-headed regulator. We're here to serve and we listen. And so we went away and we separated the two sectors. So the regulations that we've put together now are basically to provide guidelines relating to the specific practices of our licensees, including things like their contract terms, their billing policies, the complaints handling, service delivery constraints, and what have you. And so it outlines the obligations, basically, that any licensee, whether it's a public electricity supplier or an authorized public electricity supplier, should have in relation to their consumers. But, we're a regulator and we try to be fair. So it also outlines some of the obligations that consumers will have to the licensee as well. So, your obligation to pay your bill, when you do, what happens if you don't, and those type of things, as well as if you're going to be filing a complaint, what type of information you should record and keep or have handy to submit along with your complaints in order to support the complaint.
Excellent. So then when the current, spikes and something goes wrong, will we help to regulate that act of God segment with BPL? Because, we got a lot of that. There's always that act of God. Somehow God is always involved when my fridge loses power, So where does IRCA, can I make that complaint?
Well, act of God is a very real thing. But like I tell people, if you keep the proper logs and the notes, and if you go through the consumer protection regs, it'll tell you what you need to keep track of. So when you have an outage, you need to record what time did my light spike and my TV blew, or keep your receipts when you go to have it repaired or replaced. Don't save it up until there's some lightning storm and then come and go, oh, my TV blew, because then it's going to be an act of God. But there are any number of things that happen. And I tell people, I'm not here to defend the utility, but there are any number of things, third-party interventions, people running into poles, causing lines to clash and what have you. But if by all means the utility is found to be negligent in any which way or form, our consumer protection regs and our procedures basically will hold them accountable. And we have a whole consumer protection officer and section in IRCA that is specifically geared towards assisting you with filing those complaints on those occasions.
Is there any such thing? Sorry, go ahead, Mrs.
No, I just
Crawley.
want to say I'm so happy that Siobhan mentioned what he just did a while ago, because in order for you to succeed with a claim, you have to show that the service provider was negligent in his actions, and not just because something happened, mean that they intentionally caused it or one of their agents or servants caused it to happen. And that is why it is so important that we engage consumers and other stakeholders in this kind of a process, so they can see what it is that we're trying to do and make some intervention or make a contribution as to why they think we should not go a certain way.
I'm appreciative of this group. So now, how do folks get involved again into this, to the feedback, giving feedback?
Every IRCA is an extremely transparent organization.
And forgive me, Mavis, your audio is a bit low, so we can just come a little closer.
IRCA is extremely transparent. Is that better? In everything that we do. And so every document, every piece of work that we produce is on our website. And so this particular consultation document is available on our website, www.ircabahamas.bs. And what you do, you would, of course, download the document. Under normal circumstances, you could come into the office and request a copy. But of course, COVID has taken care of that a little bit. But you can download the document, you can review the document, and then it tells you exactly how to submit your responses. It even guides you by providing certain questions after each section. Do you agree that this is the right compensation method? Do you agree that the way IRCA is proposing to address this is the way to go? And then you can answer, so it gives you a little summary, and you can answer yes, no, provide your information, provide your explanation, and we want you to know that any submissions that we receive, the team of experts headed by Siobhan, they review that with a fine-tooth comb. They look at what you suggest and propose, the same way they look at other submissions coming in from other stakeholders. They will, of course, evaluate that. They benchmark it against what's happening in the industry, regionally, internationally, best practices, and then we make a final determination. And so don't think that when you send us as a regular consumer, you send us a feedback and it goes nowhere. No, we review those, and then when we put out the sequential documents and develop those and upload those, your comments are listed. We have to list whatever somebody, group of persons, certain entities, we have to say this feedback was made. And then say why we either accepted the suggestion made, considered it in our final determination, and then put out a final determination. But what I'm finding is we get, a lot of people will come with a complaint that is obvious that they were not cognizant of what the what currently obtains or where they can succeed with a claim against the service provider.
Got it.
And we don't change documents every day. We will, if something comes in after the fact, we will consider it for review. But certainly by then it might be too late for you. And so we really cannot emphasize sufficiently how important it is for stakeholders, especially consumers, to
get involved.
All
right. Well, we got to go. Thank you, Mavis Johnson Carley.
Can I just give a contact?
But you got no time, so really quick.
3930238, info@ircabahamas.bs.
Excellent. Thank you guys so much. It's been a pleasure. Siobhan Cambridge, Mavis Johnson Carley. You're listening to the Hit Back with Nahaja Black. Everybody have a great day. We're out.
Revenge. I'm mad. Got to get back. I need some get back.
What kind of country we're going to be? 4 more years of Georgia, is going to find ourselves in a position where if Trump gets elected, we're going to be in a different world.
Look, I never forgot what President Kennedy said about going to the moon. He said we're going, you know why? Because we refuse to postpone. Let's not postpone and get out of the rain. God bless you all. Thank you. I'll lead an effective strategy to mobilize true international effort to pressure. Mobilize true international effort to pressure. I just have one thing to say. Hang on here.
All right. There you go. Dance a little bit, Joe. Come on.
I'll tell you, my man. I'll tell you what, if I had the talent of any one of these people, I'd be elected president by acclamation. Speak. You should go out and vote. You're in voting now. Vote and let your senators know how strongly you feel. Vote now.
Are you gonna pack the
Make
court?
sure you, in fact, let people know
He doesn't
you're
wanna
a
answer the
senator.
question.
I'm not going to answer the question
Why
because
wouldn't you answer that
because
question?
the
You wanna
question
put a lot of
the
new
question
Supreme Court
is
justices,
the
radical
question-
left.
Will you
Who
shut
is
up,
your,
man?
Listen, who is on your list, Joe?
This
Who's
is
on your
so
list?
right, gentlemen. Million Michiganders. Donald Trump thinks health care is a privilege. Barack and I think it's a right for people to have bad health care.